UXDD is not a new magical potion to save the world. It's a design approach that places a lot of emphasis on the presentation layer. In other words, the first question to ask is, how do you want to do it? In history, many great ideas that then turned into great products have been initially sketched out on paper napkins, and someone even said that God created paper so that architecture could be drawn on it. Talk is easy and cheap, and too many words might be confusing to any audience. Customers want to get concrete visual ideas of the final product. They want to form an idea about the experience they will go through while working and using the product. UX-driven design brings a few clear benefits in this regard. First and foremost, requirement gathering also includes sketches and the sketches that users will work with. This simple fact adds a new level of understanding. Users and developers will talk and explain each other using words and visual artifacts. Show me your words with a drawing, we could say. In this way, it is so easy to catch blanks and omissions. The discussion focuses on actions, and more importantly, the back end can be architected to match perfectly the front end that users will work with. UXDD expands the classic role of the software architect, like the quote from the popular movie The Matrix about the red and blue pill. The purpose is letting the truth of the system emerge. The software architect, as usual, faces the painful truth of verbose requirements. The blue UX architect instead will face the blissful simplicity of sketches. The red architect collects business requirements through interviews with the declared goal of building the best possible domain layer. The blue architect still runs interviews to collect usability requirements and aims at building the best possible presentation layer. You can't realistically have the best possible domain layer for a system without knowing exactly how the system will be used. I'm talking about architect roles here, not necessarily about individuals. This means that the same individual can be playing the two roles in the same project. Responsibilities of the UX architect. The architect has primarily to identify the architecture of the information, so the ideal way for data to flow through the front end and the back end. Ideal way to flow here means ideal user-machine interaction. More than everything else, architecture of the information and interaction must be carefully tested and validated through a number of usability reviews. Common steps of the review process are recording users while using the system or a prototype of the system, analyzing the body language, monitoring the time each operation takes just to see if there is any room for improvement. The primary goal of UXDD is catching any design and process bottlenecks as soon as possible. Note, UXDD is not at all about graphics, but it is mostly about finding the ideal flow of work and data through the system. The philosophy of UX-driven design can be summarized in 3 steps. First, create screens and iterate on their layouts until users get to love them. Second, make actionable buttons on those screens to trigger appropriately orchestrated business workflows. The key thing going on here is that screens abstract all the data that goes in and out of the system for each use case. Third, just code workflows using any required piece of business and data access logic. The 3 steps don't take place neither sequentially nor iteratively. The first step must be fully accomplished before you ideally start the other 2. You have 2 distinct groups of sprints, one to define screens and one to build the system. In the end, UXDD is based on a two-phase waterfall, but each of the phases is developed in a fully agile manner. The economics of UXDD are positive because the screen phase, iterative design of the front end, is pretty quick and cheap, as it doesn't require coding efforts and leads then to straight implementation of the back end. The duration of the project is typically a bit longer than the first deployment of a classic bottom-up development. At the same time, you have nearly no post-deployment costs, as you likely delivered just what the users want right the first time. And this is the deal.